is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Lore Reloaded. Hey, I got a new fancy thing on my microphone, so let me know if there's any issues with hearing me or anything like that. Generally, the audio looks good, but, you know, I never know how all of this crap goes. With that out of the way, let me see if I can hear myself. Oh, I can't hear myself yet. With that out of the way, don't forget to check me out, twitter.com/Lore Reloaded. Don't forget to go to twitch.tv/Lore Reloaded. Can I hear myself? Fancy thing on my microphone. Yeah, let me turn it up a little bit. Let me know if it gets turned up way too much, but I'll turn it up just slightly for you people, because I enjoy talking with you people. I enjoy the back and forth. That should be a lot better. Check me out at twitter.com/Lore Reloaded. As said, twitch.tv/Lore Reloaded. I am your lore master, James, for today, and let's start saying hi to a couple of people. Let's see what's going on. Micah Leith is here. That's always fun. We got the Dank User, who always reminds me of Count Dankula for some reason. Josh Noel actually caught live for once. That's hey, everybody, the world has changed, and it changes today. Whisper Darkling saying, here we go again. We got Darth Scream, the Evil Scott, Park Maxwell. We got, who else? We got Aetheron. Who doesn't love Aetheron? We also have, anybody else? Common Sense America. Always fun to see Common Sense America in the hizzy. Captain Jesse 1, the unknown user, asking where the hell he is. If you have to ask, you'll never know. So with that out of the way, let's break it down. Today we'll be talking about Starfleet, putting Starfleet on trial. Are they jingoistic? Are they militaristic? I think I have done a video today. I think I have done another live stream where we kind of discuss Starfleet and everything they did. But it's something that's continuing to come up, so I figured I'd do another live stream on it, and I may do another video. I don't know. I'm on the fence. More importantly, though, I think that it's a cool and fun little topic depending on how you want to look at how Starfleet acts. Because depending on what series you're looking at, Starfleet is either naive in the way they do it, or they're just straight out don't care. Either way, they do it all the same, which is to act very egotistic, very imposing. So it's kind of an interesting dichotomy, I think, when you break it down. Gabriel Ferris, how you doing? Bird of Prey 5, always fun. Q did put them on trial, and maybe he came to the wrong conclusion, good sir. Maybe he came to the wrong conclusion. So, let's look at it. Now, with in every series, with the exception of maybe Voyager, when you look at Enterprise, Discovery, the original series, The Next Generation, and Deep Space Nine, I think you could see some encroachment by Starfleet, or some egotism by Starfleet that would push them to being what's the word I'm looking for? Expansionist, we'll say, at best. And Whisper Darkling says he did more than once. What are you talking about, good person? I can't tell if you're male or female. You talk to me, because you seem to be having an issue. So call me out, Whisper Darkling. Let's have this conversation. And Death Scream uses a phaser in Fallout 4. So let's hit it by step by step. So I think that when you look at the series, again, with the exception of Voyager, the military and the encroachment of Starfleet is kind of palpable. So in Enterprise, they go and they move out on their own and they begin to explore. Interestingly enough, it's not to the extent that we see in any of the other series, because they really don't have the power to back it. But the Enterprise and Starfleet does go making its own decisions and making playing God to the different powers and the different governments that they interact with. And in some instances, they choose who dies and who doesn't. And this isn't even to point out some of the more obvious ones where I think we had some extra circumstances, like when they stole the warp core and things like that. I'm talking about when they had all the time in the world to decide what they were going to do, and they chose how a planet would continue to move out or how they wouldn't. Um, and the biggest one is the episode when it comes to evolution, deciding not to help a people because they don't understand how the theory of evolution works, like even at a base level. Uh, there were other instances where they assisted in wars and assisted in engagements, freeing people, deciding what is and what isn't right, and just going out of their way to push their ideals on other cultures. We even see this to a smaller degree in international, intergalactic presence when they decide to either be on the side of the Andorians or be on the side of the Vulcans, impacting a galactic level worth of events. So Enterprise, I think, does it the least of the ones we'll be talking about. But what are your guys' thoughts when it comes to that? Now, again, Enterprise, I think it was more a naivete, trying to learn, and that Archer as a captain was an idiot. But that's my opinion. What do you guys think? Whisper Darkling clarifying Q put humanity on trial more than once. If I remember, there are at least 2 episodes where his trial continued. I remember at the beginning and the end. Maybe he did it again. I'm not sure. I thought you were talking about me, that I was like repeating the topic, and I was curious if I had been, because I talk about so much. It's possible that I did. In many ways, Gabriel Ferris says, in many ways, you could liken the different factions of Game of Thrones to the different powers of Star Trek quadrants. Yeah. Josh Noel taking the Eddington approach. I feel like Starfleet is like the Borg, but worse. As with the Borg, you know what's happening, but with Starfleet, it's getting more shady as you get assimilated. Eddington, I don't think was wrong. Eddington really did highlight what Starfleet had become, and I do wish that we'd had an exploration of that. I don't know that the writers could explore that concept and in any way, without it being ham-fisted, make Starfleet come out on top. So that may be why they didn't move forward with it. But that would be an interesting. I wish they'd flesh that out. I get this a lot. When you talk about Enterprise, asks Michael Plevka, do you think it was good that Vulcans held humanity back? Ultimately, we will never know. There's no consistent. There's simply no way to know. I don't necessarily blame the Vulcans and how they acted or the way they reacted. I do think that the Vulcans, based on what humanity did when they went out into the stars and things, I don't think the Vulcans were wrong necessarily. And that was actually the whole point. The plot was that humanity struck out, but they were too vivacious. They were too young, and that the Vulcans were right. But again, I do think that Vulcans had some concerns that were justified once humanity went out there. Should they have done it? I'm not sure. I do think that Vulcans finding the humans first was the best. Klingons would have enslaved the humans. Andorians probably would have caused a war. Tellarites, possibly a war. More likely, yeah, possibly a war, given how humans work. Klingons would have enslaved them. I think I already said that. Romulans would have enslaved them. So the first contact with the Vulcans was the best for humanity that occurred, though. Starfleet's answer to the Federation Council, how much influence it has over Starfleet, is an interesting question, asked Callum Oxton. Callum Oxton up in the house. In theory, the Federation Council has a heck of a lot of oversight. And when the Federation Council says jump, Starfleet asks how high. That said, it does seem like there isn't too much oversight, given what we see with the Admiralty and how much power the Admiralty has. It doesn't seem like the President nor the Council really have a huge amount of impact or power over Starfleet, which is one of the problems Starfleet doesn't... one of the big reasons Starfleet doesn't or Starfleet has a lot of issues, in my opinion. Gabriel Ferris always wondered if the character of Eddington was made simply because the writers wanted to show how men, in this case, the awesome Sisko, can be superior because of honor. I don't think Eddington makes Sisko look good. I think Eddington shows the flaws of Starfleet, and I'll say this: I think he shows the flaws of Sisko, because I think Sisko, under normal circumstances, would have listened to Eddington and agreed with some of the things he said. Even early Deep Space Nine, Sisko was kind of talking about the same thing Eddington was doing, or Eddington was talking about. But I think that it shows that he was so gung-ho and so... Sisko, you don't betray Sisko. And because of that, I think that's kind of what happened to him. But again, moving back to Enterprise specifically, I think that is the early stages of what we see with the expansion, the playing God. I think that is some of the reasons that the failures within Starfleet Admiralty happen, is because the Council doesn't watch them. But I don't know why I just talked about that, because I was reading. Enterprise, they did play God. They moved. They made decisions that really negatively and positively impacted. I think the NX-01 Enterprise is kind of like Voyager. And someone said this, and I thought it was really apt. Voyager is like a snowplow going through the Delta Quadrant. And I think Enterprise was like a snowplow going through the Alpha Quadrant. Sometimes it did really good. Sometimes it didn't. Moving into Discovery. Well, let me see. You guys have anything to say about that, or we still talking? Everybody loves Eddington. We should put him on trial. I don't think I've put Eddington on trial. I would have loved to see Eddington and Thomas Riker get in. I would have loved to see Eddington and Thomas Riker together in debate against Picard and the Sisko. That would have been interesting, though Sisko's not a huge fan of Picard. What if it was Jean-Luc Picard versus Michael Eddington? Would that have played out differently? I think so. Picard wouldn't have had any of that mess. Picard would have completely tried to shut Eddington down. I don't think he would have done well, but he would have completely tried to shut Eddington down, for sure. Starfleet has no oversight. Well, who would have... Yeah, exactly. The Evil Scott says, Mr. Plow. That's from something, I'm sure. What is The Simpsons? Mr. Plow? Alright, so let's talk about Discovery for a second. Everybody's favorite topic. You can't win on the Discovery. By the way, 70 people watching, only 20 thumbs up. Hit that thumb up button. It helps me out in more ways than you can know. Just hit it. Let's get it up to 70 thumbs up, people. Alright, so let's talk about Discovery. In Discovery, you can't win. If you like Discovery, all the haters jump on you. If you don't like Discovery, all the apologists jump on you. And if you have a medium... or a median opinion of it, absolutely without fail, both sides jump on you. It's really interesting, because when I did my review, everybody found something to hate, regardless of whether you liked or disliked the show. It's intriguing to say. But Discovery, I think, kind of shows the ideal as well. We don't see it as much in Discovery either. But Discovery shows this bigger than thou. Diversity is our strength. We're going to continue to push our ideals and thoughts on you. And while we're not going to be the immediate aggressors, we're going to do things that will spur and will antagonize those around us. And the problem is that once the war started, they really do give up a lot of the higher ground based on everything that they do. And they're willing to just go beyond what the Starfleet Charter is. But for Discovery's sin, when it comes to this, when it comes to being expansionist, when it comes to being jingoistic, I think it is an attempt by Starfleet to push an ideal which only antagonizes both sides horrifically. And that's one of the reasons for the war. Now, again, that doesn't justify why the Klingons went to war, but I do think it's one of those where we're trying to push our ideals on you, and when you get pissed off, we don't understand, but we're going to continue to push that line. And we're still at a point where Starfleet and the United Federation of Planets, they're not powerful enough to impose their will upon the other powers. And so they're still acting like what we see in TNG and DS9. They're just not the big dogs on campus, and that's a lot of what happened to them. Xavier Gamer, are you at all hopeful about Discovery Season 2? Keep in mind that's an entire new team producing it and all new writers. The executives who lied to us are the exact same. The showrunners, showrunner may not be, but the executives in CBS, the ones who lied to us, they're the exact same. So that dampers anything that I'm talking about. The actors are also, and actresses, are also the exact same. That said, I am hopeful for Discovery. I'm always hopeful that Discovery pulls it out. A lot of people think that I'm just going to always be negative and stuff, but no, if I like something, I like something. I'll definitely be the happiest if Season 2 proves me wrong on every point. I think it'll be interesting, and hopefully they go somewhere with it. But I don't know. I'm hopeful that Season 2 will. And I think anyone who's watched my immediate reviews after Discovery, because we did that, and we'll be doing that again. Every time Discovery comes out, as soon as it goes live on CBS, Anti-Trekker and I will watch it, and we will do an immediate review after we're done watching it. And if you watch those in Season 1, you'll see that there were times that I was very excited about it, very interested in where the plot went, especially mid-season. I think mid-season is the strongest Discovery. And most of the Mirror Universe was pretty strong as well. But again, looking at Discovery, looking at the United Federation of Planets, looking at Starfleet, I think that they have what we still see within within TNG, within Deep Space Nine. It's just they're not powerful enough to really impose their will like they can in those eras. And so they cause war because they push this diversity. And not that diversity is bad. This isn't even a conversation of whether Starfleet is right or not. It's a continuous attempt to impose one's will until the point that you antagonize someone enough that they attack. Doesn't justify what they did, but it explains why it happened. DJ Scott, that's probably what started the Dominion War, those bug things who infiltrated Starfleet back in early TNG. I would need some expansion on that. I would need a little more conversation before I'm talking to that. What time period would your next ideal Star Trek series take place? Generation after Voyager? I would be interested, actually, to see a series that happened 10 years after the Dominion War. And to see the struggle between a struggle between those in the Federation who want to be scientists and those in the Federation who never want the Dominion War to happen again. I'd be very curious. I'd love to see that explained and that expanded upon. Look at the original series. Season 1 was top 75 in ratings and in danger of cancellation before the season even aired. Now look at it. Okay. Maybe the Spore Drive was officially a failed project. At the same time, the Spore Drive tech does work well, but Section 31 stole the Spore tech? Maybe, but it seems like a lot of people know about the Spore Drive. I don't know how they would... That just seems too convenient, in my opinion. Cryptic Streams, what are they on trial for? They're on trial for being jingoistic, militaristic, expansionist. And I tell you what, let's do this. Let's do this, happy friends, happy helpers. Let's go to info and settings. Let's do it. Let's go to info and settings. Let's put in parentheses. I don't think it's parentheses. Say to expansionist and or jingoistic. Close. Save changes. Now everybody knows what they're on trial for. Everybody wins in this entire... I mean, even you win. And I'm really happy for your winning. Do you think that Starfleet should be split into two branches, one science and the other military? We keep talking about that. I do. I think that you should have the FSS, which would be the Federation or Science Division, and then the USS, which would be the warships. Do you think they would have folded parts of the spore drive into the transwarp project? It's possible. The spore drive itself is too powerful, though. It's too powerful for anyone to give up. It's kind of like in the Kelvin timeline with the fact that you can bring people back to life with tribbles or with Khan's blood, and what is that, transporter or whatever it's called, that transporter that can transport you across the galaxy. Once you've created that, you either have to find a way to destroy it and make it so it can't be brought back, or now it can be consistently used. And so, there's just a lot that you have to go with that, right? All right, so Discovery, they have the ideals, they don't have the power, and I think that caused quite a bit of the issues that they had with the Romulans and with the Klingons. The original series, again, the first 3 series aren't that bad about it, at least yet. We haven't gotten to season 2 of Discovery. The original series, the Starfleet has gotten back on its feet. It's starting to have some power. It has the Constitution-class ship, which is the pride of the fleet, one of the most advanced and most powerful ships. A lot of Discovery apologists don't like to hear that, but even when you look at the stats so far, the Constitution would beat the Discovery hands down. It just would. And so now you have a militarized Starfleet. A Starfleet where they call themselves soldiers. Starfleet where they accept what they've become. Right? And so they're not only exploring, but they are using their military might to impose their will to a degree. Now, I think the original series is probably the most benign when it comes to this. But we do still see them going and pushing the Starfleet dogma on other planets, enforcing their will via weapons, if necessary. And so I think I'm trying to think of specific examples in the original series. For the most part, the original series, as I stated, was pretty benign. Atheron says, for all the game-breaking tech, there's always the trope, no plans, no prototype, no backup. Yeah, I talked about that in The Perfect Cloak, in fact. The Perfect Cloak in Undiscovered Country, I believe. But, I mean, there were, when you had civilizations that were, like, using rocks and stuff, they'd give them phasers to fight the Klingons. And so, even though it's a response, you do see them pushing. You would see them pushing forward with it. Let's see. I don't know if the fans are apologists. It's not a war crime. Some are too aggressive, granted. Apologists is somebody who is proactive and who pushes for what they're talking about. So I'm not sure why you'd have an issue with apologists. Also, fans, at least when it comes to YouTube, are some of the most aggressive people on the face of the planet, and would never say what they comment to my face. So even if we give apologists a negative connotation, it is very apt for the fans of Star Trek Discovery. At least those who are on YouTube. Of course, that's with anybody. YouTube comments are probably some of the worst places to be. By the way, 38 thumbs up, 75 people watching. What the hell is going on, people? Do you want this to thrive? If you want me to thrive, you need to hit the thumbs up. Now, if you don't want me to thrive and you want the channel to go under and burn, hit that thumbs down. I promise you it doesn't do anything positive. You can trust me as much as you can trust a Star Trek Discovery apologist. So hit that thumb down. It'll completely ruin the channel. So definitely, if you want to ruin the channel, do that as well. In the original series, there was that planet that was based on the 20s gangster lifestyle. They definitely imposed their will with weapons in that episode. Sure, I don't disagree. Well, Neuropunk, Astrogator, we're just using the term apologist differently, no problem. The official definition is someone who advocates for something else. It's kind of like propaganda. Propaganda isn't by itself bad. It was just the government made it bad. For instance, the Bible is propaganda. That doesn't necessarily make it bad. Propaganda doesn't have to be a bad thing. That's not the official definition. The use of it has come off negatively. My channel is propaganda. Anything can be propaganda. Lore Reloaded, you can trust that I'll never comment or say in this chat anything that I wouldn't say to your face over a picture of Shiner Bond. Well, that's good, Atheron. I appreciate that. Why was Captain Janeway not court-martialed right after the home to Earth? That was political. That was exactly political. I hit the thumb left button. Okay. So, the original series, there's not much more. Really, when we move into the Next Generation in Deep Space Nine is where I think we hit the Expansionist and Jingoist height of the Federation itself. It's where a lot of this, I think, comes from. The issue in the Next Generation is that they, for the first couple of seasons, claim that they're not military and that they're exploration and yada yada yada, and then we have them pushing in some instances and not in others. And so what'll happen, Marinor, is your username based on lore from TNG or just the definition of the word lore? I specifically don't just do Star Trek, so that answers your question. They will impose their will, again, on planets, or will push their borders. And yet, when they come up against a organization or a government that gets pissed off about it, they back down. And so, you can kind of say, you see this jingoistic, what's the word I'm looking for? This push, this expansionist push, and yet, because they don't accept that they're a military at this point, they kind of almost instantly back off when they come up against an aggressor. And I think that's where you see the Cardassian border wars, where you see them colonizing and pushing out, and then someone has an issue with it, and ultimately they give up. They're like, yeah, you can keep it, whatever. The problem, I think, is that, again, in the Next Generation, the Federation has become the biggest dog on campus. I've said this quite a lot. They don't care about what am I trying to say? They've defeated the Klingons. They've defeated the Romulans. The Cardassians really aren't any threat. There's no major government that really can challenge them unless all of them got together, and that's not going to happen. And so because of that, they really start believing that there's nothing that can stop them, which is one of the reasons why the Borg was such a big deal, because the Borg just straight up destroy them in some instances, right? So the interesting thing about it is, again, because of the ego that they have and the power that they wield, Starfleet overall, will push as much as it can and expand in all directions and use its influence to impact other people. Jose Corrales says, by TNG, Roddenberry had more philosophy, so TOS is sort of a space western with tropes of the 60s TV, right down to a Nazi episode. Interesting fact, actually. The original series was not as controlled by Roddenberry as people like to think. That's simply not true. If you look into it, the original series was we'll use the word compromise, though I think that if Roddenberry had been talking in private and truthful, he wouldn't have referred to it like that. Where there was a lot of things that he didn't like, including the military, including religion. Quite a bit about the original series he did not agree with, but went with to have it on the air. In the Next Generation, the first at least 2, maybe 3 seasons, he had complete control, which is why you see this massive shift from ideology. And that's kind of what we're talking about. The first couple of seasons made the Federation this top dog, and then they just continued to push and use their ideals. And when they lost against the Cardassians, I don't think they stopped ever having this expansionist attitude, even if they didn't admit that it was an expansionist attitude. Because I seriously think when you look at the subcontext and what happened in TNG into Deep Space Nine, the Cardassians pulling out of Bajor was because of Starfleet putting pressure on the Cardassians, and then Starfleet just comes in and just starts pushing the Starfleet dogma. Now they say it's only for protection, we're only helping you out, but I mean they instantly come in and start pushing their own dogma, and I mean that's something to think about right there. Atheron says one might think of the Federation as almost a Sith in philosophy, forever reaching out and reaching for challenges to test themselves and make themselves stronger, having faced them. The problem with the problem with that philosophy of the Starfleet is that I just don't think that what am I trying to say here? I'm sorry, I'm trying to read and talk at the same time. I think Starfleet is like the Sith. It's just they don't admit it. And they don't know that that's what they're doing. Again, being on Paradise. Jose Corrales, it's an odd phenomenon that we try to retcon these shows like they were planned. Odd but interesting. DJ Scott brings up a good point. It's deconstructionism. It doesn't matter so much what the author of a work is trying to say. It matters what it says to us. It's not just that. A lot of people get upset. It's like, well, that's not what was intended, or that's what blah, 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 blah. I'm playing by the rules of the people who create the show. The rules of the people who create the show say that if it happens on screen, then it is... it's canon. That's what happens in real life. That's the way it is. It doesn't matter what the writers intended. It doesn't matter what the people who created the ships, the designers, intended. It matters what happens on screen. And we deconstruct what happens on screen. I am simply playing by the rules that the intellectual property holders of this series, of this franchise, want me to. And if people try to say that it's retconned or whatever, or that you're doing things that weren't there, then yeah, that your issue and your problem is with CBS and Paramount and those executives and Roddenberry, because Roddenberry wanted this too. That's what they wanted us to do. That's what I'm doing. So though this is what it is, do not blame me, good friend. The Federation always has too much ego, a fatal flaw if no one challenges them. Of that, I would agree. I would completely agree. Luke Bednow, how you, Lore? Long time no see. Well, how are you? What's going on, Luke? How you doing, buddy? Lore Reloaded, do you think the Starfleet fed expansion more aggressively after the Dominion War and indoctrinated more species post-war? I think I would love to see a series 10 years after the Dominion War. What I think happened is there was an attempt to return back to being explorers while still making ships of war. I think that, again, the Sovereign is a great show of that. You have the Sovereign, the Acura, the Prometheus. I think that we're not even trying to hide that we're now a military. But I think they attempt to use the Intrepid class ship. I think they attempt to use these ships as exploration. And I think that I would not be surprised if they came close to a civil war. You would almost have to, because there's two starkly different opinions on what Starfleet should be, and they can't both be that. The best case scenario would be for Starfleet to return to the original series, where ultimately it's kind of like what I just said. You have warships that you use for exploration. The Constitution class ship could, within 30 seconds, nuke half of a continent. That's not an exploration vessel, good friends. And I think that's exactly what they would have done. The UFP is a demi-utopia that believes it's the only way for the galaxy. It does. And the thing is, you can absolutely see that. You can see that in Picard. You can see that in Cisco. You can see that in Janeway. Honestly, Janeway most all of them have this egotism, have this, they try to be like, well, we can accept what you are, we just don't agree with it. None of them ever really do it right, including Cisco. The best way, and again, I know a lot of people disagree about the show, but in Sacred Ground, when you look at how Janeway reacts to religion, I think she does it as it's supposed to be in the other series, an acceptance but not a belief, or a tolerance but not an acceptance. And it doesn't come off in any of the other series. And she doesn't even do it. That's just one episode. That's one episode done well. All of the other episodes are pretty counter to that. And Starfleet has always thought that they're the best way of doing it. The one thing I'll say about Archer is at least he admitted it. At least he was honest about it. He thought, hey, this is the way it's supposed to be. And this is what we're going to do. Say what you will about the Vulcan-hating bigot, but he at least was pretty honest when it comes to that. The Cardassian Union is a cautionary tale for what would have happened to the Federation if they didn't expand as fast as Romulans or the Klingons surrounded by Imperial powers. I'd say that. Plus, they got lucky because they're in a resource-heavy area. Atheron, there's a lot to be said for gunboat diplomacy, and that's what the NCC 1701 was best at. I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that. In fact, I'll say this, I don't think Starfleet should have sent a warship as much as they did. But for those who don't know, or those who haven't seen it, I did a video talking about the Defiant itself and how they sent it to talk to the Founders. They sent a warship to talk to the Founders. That's not a bad idea. It's just not, from TNG on, it's not what we've been taught that Starfleet is. In the original series, they would have done that. I think in Enterprise they would have done that. But Discovery, TNG, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, that is not how it's done. And that's kind of why I was giving it hell, because that's just not what Starfleet is. Gunboat diplomacy has its uses. And if you're as big as the Federation, I think you have to do that. And it's not even necessarily looking for a fight. I think it's simply putting your best foot forward and showing what's going on. Neuropunk Astrogator. By the way, I forget it. Jose, I don't know if you've been on the... And forgive me if we've talked a lot, Jose. I sincerely apologize. I don't know if you've been on the channel a lot, but if you say something I disagree with, I'm going to not call you out, but I'm going to counter, and I may even be passionate about it, but this is about having a conversation. It's about a back and forth. So don't take it personally. I feel like you've been on the channel before, but on the off chance you haven't, I just wanted to put that out there. Neuropunk Astrogator, who do we blame for these problems? Does the fault lie with the average Federation citizen, with all of Starfleet, or with the Admiralty? It's my opinion that this was this was evolutionary, and it was actually only natural that this would happen. For lack of a better idiom, it was only human. Though I think it happened to all of the races. The Starfleet in Discovery and the original series had been fighting for so long and had been having horrific battles and people dying, and they were pushing and pushing and pushing, and they continued to expand, continued to make their mark. And so after they won, after the Klingon Federation Cold War ended, and we had Federation come out as top dog. The Romulans retreated back. Cardassians have never really been a threat. Breen keep doing their own thing. The Federation became top dog, and so now, since there's a sigh of relief, and we could start expanding, and now we start having replicator technology, and now we start having more advanced holodeck technology. I know we had it in Discovery in the original series, but it's more expanded, it's better. We start having a utopia. Everything looks great, and on all the core worlds, at least, on Vulcan, on Earth, on Andoria, it really, you lived a great life, right? And we have Sean Kaiser becoming a lore master. And so it's only natural that species, humans for sure, but I think other species, begin to become relaxed and begin to think that their dogma, it becomes this giant echo chamber, because they're not being challenged by the Klingons, they're not being challenged by the Romulans. Starfleet it starts feeding into themselves, and so the populace becomes very relaxed, very distinct, very this is the way it is. That feeds into the Federation Council and feeds into Starfleet. And I think that that was... I don't think there's one specific place. I think it's a natural evolution based on what we've seen. To talk about what Jose said beforehand, I don't think any of this was planned. I don't. But it fits in really, really well. And so I think that's where we're at. Resolute Germ talking about using the Defiant. They sent a warship because they were scared after the Odyssey was destroyed. It showed growth on Starfleet's behalf. I mean, that's possible. A warship is a good idea. It's just not... And that even that is not consistent with how Starfleet has acted. Brian Adams becoming a lore master, that's not consistent with how Starfleet has acted. Starfleet has let things get destroyed to hell and back and still sent weaker ships. Luke Bednall, who I believe was already a subscriber, resubscribing and becoming a lore master. And I will turn those off if you guys start doing that. Y'all gonna make me turn this off. That's what y'all gonna do. I'll do it. I won't even feel bad about it. What did Common Sense America say? What are we agreeing with? Huh? Well, I guess it's gone. All right, we should have stolen the Vorta from the Founders. We could have reprogrammed them to see us as gods. Yeah, it's definitely what we should have. A problem with the Federation is complacent argument is human nature. We are at least some of us warriors. Starfleet should be honing itself constantly. No sound, you say? Since America say. No, you're messing with me, Cajun. There's sound. If there's no sound, let me know. Press 1. But I'm just going to turn it on and listen. And if I hear sound, then there's going to be sound. That goes against the premise of what Star Trek was. The premise of Star Trek was that the humans had evolved past that. They were no longer warriors. They had moved past it. Now, there are some examples of how that may not have necessarily been true, but that's the entire premise, and most other species were the same way. And even in TNG, humans couldn't have huge disagreements with humans. That's how much they had evolved. Jose Corrales says, oh, I agree. The series wasn't planned, but it is an excellent exercise that makes it better, much like true historiography. Sure. Yeah, I mean, again, that's one thing I'll say about the writers. I don't know how much they attempted to be consistent, but they really built some things in, for good and bad. Like, here's an interesting theory. I wonder how much... greetings, Lore Master. How is the trial going? It's going well. I wonder how much of... how much information or news was kept from the populace. Because there are some interesting assumptions or theories that you can make based on reactions by the populace themselves. So when you look at the Borg attack, the first one, the Battle of Wolf 359, and then them almost assimilating Earth, 3 years after that, the populace says, you know what? This Borg threat, not the biggest of deals. We don't have to worry about it. Nothing going on, nothing wrong. Let's not make warships to defend ourselves. What the hell kind of complacency or drugs are they taking? 3 years after, at least in Battlestar Galactica, the reimagined, I don't know how the original, in the reimagined, it was decades after. What was it, like 50 years? Like almost another generation. And I could see that happening 50 years out, but 3 or 4 years after that? No. No, you gotta be kidding me. That's stupid. And that's not the first time that's happened either. Earth, and I would argue all of the core planets, Vulcan, Andoria, Tellarite, think that they're untouchable, and they make decisions based on we're untouchable. Nathan Norman says, "Why is the only one NCC Defiant, and that is the 17? Why is only one NCC Defiant, and that is the 1764, which happened in the original series? Shouldn't Cisco's be the NCC 1764A, given that there was a Defiant before instead of the NX?" There's a theory that I heard from Trek Yards that seems to hold a little weight to that, and that's to say that the dash A, dash B, dash C, dash D was given to the Enterprise because of its contribution and how much it positively impacted the Federation, and that it's the only ship that does that. Because we see multiple ships with similar names used over and over again, and they don't have a dash A, dash B, dash C. And that seems to give credence that the only ship that has a dash A, dash B, blah, 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 is the Enterprise. Let's talk ideals. Ideals are great maxims to strive for, things we should. The Federation has high ideals, but reality is different. Humans cannot evolve in just 300 years. Even Khan said so. I think that you could see a large expansion. So, what's Starfleet? Going into theories that we could discussing. The interesting piece to that is you see an expansion in nature. You see the replicator. You see the holodeck. And so could humans evolve in 300 years to the point that we see where they don't even care if your mom dies? Nature versus nurture, I think it's an amalgamation of both. And I think if nature was completely taken care of, we would see a large evolution of how humanity acts. I could be wrong. I'm not a psychiatrist, but or a psychologist, but I could it have gotten that far? I don't know. Maybe. But I'm not sure. We should have seen at least one or two other sovereign classes other than the Enterprise during the Dominion War. Also, where was the Enterprise during the Dominion? We didn't see that because of Paramount. That was completely due to legal reasons. Paramount did not want any sovereigns on Deep Space Nine. In theory, sovereigns would have been there. You could argue that they were rare because of how much it required, and that they didn't have the manpower. We see that in the Pale Moonlight, where the senator is talking about how there's a man shortage. And we even see that when they make Nog an ensign, because they're really hard up. And so even if they could build sovereigns, they don't have the people to field them, which is why you make the Prometheus. That's the only reason to make a ship like the Prometheus, where 4 people is all it takes. Because you don't have the manpower, and you're trying desperately to find a way around it. Just check Memory Alpha. The Galaxy-class Yamato was 1305-E in one appearance. I would need to go and rewatch that. Memory Alpha is a great resource. It's one of the first ones I look up, and in fact, you'll see me note them quite a bit. Sometimes they don't get it right, though, and so I would have to go see that. I'm not saying it's wrong or you're wrong, Etheron. I would just need to take a look at that. If that's true, then I don't know. I don't know why it wouldn't have been. Those people who committed those genocides are from the generation of our grandparents, says Jose Corrales. Okay, I'm not sure what you're talking about, but okay. Enterprise E was stuck dealing with diplomatic and bushfires in the Federation backwaters for the Dominion War. That's the common acceptance, that you had the Sovereign-class ships trying to stop rebellion and civil war. I don't know how smart that would be if that's what was done. Let's see. Area 51. Everyone, the party can stop. All right, everyone. Let's all relax. Area 51 is here. To be fair, Wesley was an ensign. Wesley, it's unfortunate that Wesley existed at all. I find the evolved sensibility a little problematic. Western civilization only recently created humanism, but philosophies of peace and inclusion are eons old. I think we're getting better with it, though. You're seeing... I know what 24-hour news likes to tell us. By the way, 101 people watching, only 66 thumbs up. What's going on with that, people? What is going on with that? You see less wars and less conflict than we ever have when you compare it, and less death, and a better standard of living. I don't know that it's as advanced as it should be if Star Trek was right. But I do think that you have people who are. I do think we're in a better spot, and I think that even though our base natures as apes push us into conflicts and things, I think that we are 1,000 times better than 100 years ago, 10,000 times better than 300 years ago, and an infinite amount of time better than 50,000 years ago. If humans have been on the Earth 50,000 years. I don't know how long humanity's been here. But I'm saying, I do think that. Whisper Darkling, that's true. Picard never claimed to be a soldier. He'll fight if forced, but diplomacy is what he does best. Picard has specifically said he isn't a soldier and that Starfleet isn't a military. He has said that at least once, possibly multiple times. And so, he goes out of his way to not talk about being a soldier, and yet has one hell of a high kill count for someone who isn't a soldier. Yeah. We'll be ending it pretty soon, so if you guys got anything to say or anything you want to add, let me know in the comments below. Actually, there's no comments below. You know a good serious sonic boom? It's funny as hell. The Evil Scott says every generation evolves, but it's tiny changes. Of that I would agree. Lore Reloaded. We're building from the eugenics war according to Trek. We like the kings compared to regular people in the 1700s. Okay. We're rebuilding from the eugenics war. Okay. Well, and in fact, interestingly, there was a lot of genocide after the eugenics war too, due to all of the mutants that were created, thanks to Enterprise. According to Dr. Charisma, 200,000 years humans have been on the Earth. Okay, well, when the animal that you could appropriately describe as human existed on this planet, I would say we are infinitely more better than that individual. Why did Starfleet not promote all of the Captain Picard's command staff for the Dominion War and place each commanding their own ships? Because we wouldn't have, we would not have a movie if that's what happened. Actually, what I imagine would have probably, if I'm to give an in-universe explanation, as Picard says, the point of humanity is to explore, to better themselves, to look out, and not for personal gain. And so maybe they weren't just as interested in personal gain. Maybe they weren't interested in getting promoted. What I see as a danger in the Federation, which is actually commented on in the film and TV, is the primal resurfaces to horrible effect. Admirals who go bad, it's unexpected, worse for that. I think one of the most excellent episodes that you can see on becoming human again would be... Hold on, let me look at it. Give me a second. I know that's loud, guys. I apologize. What is it? No, that's not it. There was Miles O'Brien attempted to commit suicide, and he talks about how he's this hard time. He talks about how he's this advanced humans and how they were told in school how advanced and how evolved humans were, and he's got a phaser to his temple. Or he's about to... No, maybe not his temple. He's about to eat... He's eating a phaser. And it's sad, and it's interesting, and it's a way of looking at nature versus nurture. It's a really good episode. If you haven't seen Leonard Playing, you're welcome. Thank you for coming and talking with me. But if you haven't seen Hard Time, the Deep Space Nine episode, and you want an interesting dichotomy of what humans were supposed to be versus what they become, that's just excellent. Wesley could have been okay if they had not written him as Doogie Howser in space. Wesley would have been a lot better too if he wasn't Will Wheaton. That would have helped out as well. Do you think they gave Picard a desk job during the Dominion War since he's one of the best diplomats? No, I think it's most likely they sent the Enterprise in the background to different worlds to assist and to make them feel better about life, so that they won't rebel or leave the Federation. I think it would have been better. It would have been a lot more practical to put him on the front lines, or to try to have diplomatic relations with the Dominion. I think that would have been interesting. Mr. Captain 93, the baseball episode. I assume you're talking about the baseball episode against the Vulcans, which was excellent as well, because you get to see through Cisco human hubris, and which was very cool. My point is that Jose Corrales, we're going to be ending soon. My point is the Federation needs both Kirk and Picard, Cisco and Janeway. They will make mistakes, follow bad ideas because they are humans. The best episodes are those where the characters act human. I would agree, which is why those series have great points in them, and Discovery does not. The writing is just not there. You don't allow your people to be flawed, or if they're flawed, it is seriously a Mary Sue flaw. It's like, I'm just so great that it's flawed. Or I've never loved. That was so fucking stupid. Why not have a dual captaincy where the tactical officer takes over during battles rather than waiting for Picard to save fire? I think that'd be a horrible idea. That said, that would have been interesting in Voyager if you let Chakotay do all of the military stuff and then Janeway gets to do everything else, because that's where their strengths were. In Insurrection, we saw the Enterprise dealing with a new protectorate world for the Federation. The whole idea was help for the war. This world had only just invented warp. Yeah, that's where they get that the Sovereign was in the background, working on it. All right, guys, I think that is where we're going to end it. I'm pretty sure that's where we're going to end it. I want to thank all of you guys for watching. I mean, don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'm going to see you on the next. Lore Reloaded.